That foolish baby kangaroo, that Joey, he thinks he's doing everything. He thinks he's jumping very high. He thinks he's running very fast. That is the same position with all of us. Actually, God does all work by directing material nature, and we foolish living entities, we imagine that we are doing it. So Krishna says, don't do that. He says, learn to depend on me at all times. Now another very important point is that when you are learning to depend on Krishna at all times, what do you do when you get the fruit? Sometimes foolish people who have misunderstood, misconstrued and tortured the text of the Bhagavad Gita go on to tell you that karma yoga means only this, that simply work without thinking of the fruits. When you are working, don't think of the fruits, but when the fruits come, you enjoy them. This is the philosophy that some people teach you, that karma yoga means that when you are working, think only of your work, don't think about the fruits. The fruits are going to come anyway, and when the fruits come, you enjoy that fruit. But that's not true. In fact, actually, this is a very famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, you wake up any Indian in his sleep and he'll be able to give you this verse. It's also quoted in the Mahabharata. It is said, Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phala hetur bur mate sangostu akarmani. That you have no right to the fruit. He doesn't say don't think about the fruit, but when you get the fruit, enjoy it. He says you have no right to the fruit, you have only right to perform your duty. This is very important, because what happens, you find people who claim to be karma yogis, whole year they are working like donkeys, really very hard. They don't enjoy themselves 1 minute. But at the end of the year, when everything is added up and they see what they've earned, then they say, come on, let's enjoy. Then they're off. They're off for a tour of Europe or Switzerland or Hong Kong or maybe Bangkok. And they enjoy themselves and come back and say, I am karma yogi, whole year I worked very hard. But then what are you doing? You're also enjoying the fruit. Krishna says you have a right to perform your work because that work helps to reunite you with God. But you have no right to the fruit. That fruit is not your property. That fruit should be used in the service of God. You yourself must live an austere lifestyle. It doesn't matter if you are earning hundreds of crores of rupees. It doesn't matter at all. Those hundreds and crores of rupees must be used in the service of God. You yourself, you are entitled to do your work, no doubt, but you must live austerely. You must not use that for your own benefit, for enjoying yourself, because that will trap you further in karmic reaction. Therefore, it has been mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Anashrita karma phalam karya karma karotu ya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnirna chakriya. That one who works hard as he is obligated. You have your obligations to your business, to your job, to your profession. So one who works hard as he is obligated without taking shelter of the fruits of his labor. That means it doesn't matter what you are getting as fruit for your work, you don't take shelter of it. You live austerely. You minimize your standard of living so that you are just living, so that you are on the limit of tolerance of your comfort level is just your level of tolerance. You are not trying to enjoy yourself. Then such a person is considered to be a sannyasi. He is the true yogi. That is the definition of sannyasi. One who works hard and does not take shelter of his fruits. He is the real yogi. He is the real sannyasi. Not one who lights no fire and does no work. One who lights no fire and does no work, he is not the sannyasi. It is the person who is working hard all the time, but in spite of the fact that he is working hard, he is living austerely and is using the fruits of his labor in the service of God. That is the definition of sannyasi. So Krishna says, just remember these points in Karma Yoga. That Karma Yoga is performed to remember God throughout every activity that you do in your work. That the work you are doing itself is an instrument to help you reunite with God. Krishna says very clearly, and it's also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho arthayopa kalpate narthasya dharmaikantasya kamo labhaya smita. It is said that your profession itself is the instrument for your liberation. Don't give up your profession. Your profession itself is the instrument for your liberation. Dharmasya hi apavargasya, whatever you are doing in life, that has been given to you by God for the sake of liberating you. That profession or your job or your field is not meant for earning money. Dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho arthayopakalpate. It is not meant for earning money. Narthasya dharma ekantasya kamo labhaya smrita. And whatever you earn from your profession, it is not meant to be used to enjoy with your senses, because that will trap you further. That your profession or your field or your job is your instrument for liberation. It is not meant for earning money. And in fact, whatever benefit or fruit that you get from your job, if you use it to enjoy yourself, what will happen is that you will trap yourself in material nature. So instead, it should be used in the service of God. This is very important. Whatever you do it by constantly thinking of God, constantly depending on God, understanding that God is doing everything, you are doing nothing. In this way, you will be successful, because you will cross over all obstacles of life by His grace. And very important, don't think that you are doing it. And when you get the fruit, don't try to enjoy the fruit to the utmost. That fruit must be used in the service of God, and you yourself must live an austere lifestyle. This is also an important point. And furthermore, he says, do not be attached to inaction. Don't think that by giving up your activity you will be liberated. You cannot do that. You have to work, because that work has been given to you by God for liberating you. It's been given to you by God as a gift. Your work, your job, your profession is a gift given to you by God. And that gift is given to you by God as an instrument to help you develop love of Him. So how foolish if you cast it away. How foolish if you throw it away. In fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one who works as he is obligated, but he is unattached to everything around him, asakta buddhi sarvatra, jitatma vigata spriya, naishkarmyam paramam siddhim sannyasena adhigacchati. That one who works all the time as he is obligated, but he is unattached to everything around him, that person, although he is appearing to be working, he is actually reached the perfection of renunciation. Just imagine, he is working as he is obligated, but he is unattached to everything around him. Therefore, he has reached the perfection of renunciation. He has actually attained sannyas. So don't be misled by people who tell you that working like a donkey means that you are karma yogi. Working like a donkey does not mean that you are karma yogi. What is the proof? How do you differentiate between a donkey and a karma yogi? Tomorrow if you meet your neighbor or your friend or your relative who tells you that no, I am a karma yogi. So how will you check? What's the check to find out whether he is a real karma yogi or not? Find out whether he is anxious to hear about God. Because in the Srimad Bhagavatam this test has been given. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it has been said, Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishwaksena kathasuya na utpadyed yadiratim shrama evahi kevalam. That what is the proof that whether you are a karma yogi or not? If you are genuinely a karma yogi, if you are genuinely working as a karma yogi to develop love of God, then what happens? Then you become anxious to hear about God. You become anxious to hear about God. So if the work that you are doing does not make you anxious to hear about God, then the work that you are doing is hard labor. Shrama evahi kevalam. You can check it out for yourself in your own life. If by doing your job you do not become more anxious to hear about God, then the work that you are doing is hard labor. Shrama evahi kevalam. That is actually donkey's labor. Because if you are working for God, if you are remembering God, if you are depending on God, if you are thinking of God throughout your job, throughout your work, then when you are free from your work, you are anxious to hear more about God whom you have been thinking about all day. It's just like a married couple, shall I say newly married couple, because after you are married for some time, then the whole thing changes. So a newly married couple, the husband goes to work, but all the time he is working, he is thinking about his new bride who is at home. His young wife who is just married, to whom he is just married, he is thinking of her all the time because he is working for her. Whatever he is doing at his job, he is doing it to maintain his wife. So he is constantly thinking of his wife when he is working. And now what happens? When it's 6 o'clock, when it's time to leave the office, he has to rush. He is not going to say that, no, I am not very interested in going home, I will sit here in my office. No, he wants to rush home and meet his wife. Why? Because throughout the day he has been working for his wife. Therefore, when he gets the slightest opportunity, he runs to meet his wife. So also one who is a karma yogi, one who has been working for God, He works throughout the day remembering God. And at the slightest opportunity he gets, he runs to remember God. He runs to a place where he can hear about God. He runs to a place where he can talk about God. He runs to a place where he can sing about God. That is the test of whether you are a karma yogi or not. Because after all, many people claim to love God. The number of people who, if you walk down Churchgate station and throw a stone, you are bound to hit a person who tells you that I love God. But what is the test of whether somebody loves God or not? The test is, what is he doing to demonstrate his love for God? If a man says that he loves his wife, but he never visits his wife, he never talks to his wife, he never talks about his wife, he never gives his wife anything, he never thinks about his wife. In fact, he is not anxious to go and meet his wife. How can you imagine that he loves his wife? If he loves his wife, he will be thinking about his wife, he will be talking to his wife. Again, I am talking about a newly married couple. Please get me clear. And he is always anxious to go and meet her. This is the nature of love. So also one who loves God, of course that is mundane love. And this is actually transcendental pure love. In love of God, you are very anxious to hear about God. You may be doing your work, but the minute you put your pen down, when the bell rings, when you have to leave your office, immediately the thought comes, how can I best hear about God now that my work is over? Because throughout the day I have been constantly thinking about God. Now I want to hear about God. I want to talk about God. I want to do so many things for God. I want to serve God directly. This is the test of a karma yogi. So eventually, karma yoga means working so that you develop love of God. Working so that you develop love of God is termed as karma yoga. So therefore, karma yoga leads to what? Karma yoga leads to bhakti. If karma yoga doesn't lead to bhakti, what is it? It is shrama eva hi kevalam. It is hard labor. It is donkey's work if it doesn't lead to love of God. Right. So now we have what is termed as Jnana Yoga. You must know what is Jnani, you must know what is Jnana Yoga, and we must know what is the real meaning of Jnana. This is also very, very important. Now, this is very important because people often imagine, deluded people who have been misled on the path have under the impression that Jnana is the highest path to God. In actual fact, Jnana is the very lowest. Jnana, the approach to God through knowledge, is the very lowest. And when you realize that, you will understand that Jnana Yoga is not all that is painted out to be. Actually, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, you return to the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says very, very clearly, he says, fix your mind on me at all times. Fix your mind on me at all times. This is what he says. Then he says, if you can't fix your mind on me at all times, then he says, engage in Abhyas Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, because by performing Bhakti Yoga or Abhyas Yoga, you will soon be able to fix your mind on me. That is, if you chant my name, if you get up in the morning, if you visit the temple, if you congregationally sing the glories of Lord, if you hear Katha about the Lord, this is the path of Abhyas Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. In this way, he says, very shortly you will develop a desire and ability to fix your mind on me at all times. So if you can't fix your mind on me at all times, number 2 is you perform Bhakti Yoga. That means if you don't have Bhakti already, you perform Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between Bhakti and Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti is the goal of life and Bhakti Yoga is the means to attain that. So he says, if you don't have Bhakti immediately, you perform Bhakti Yoga, you will attain that ability to have love for me and fix your mind on me at all times. He says, if you can't do that, if you can't perform Bhakti Yoga, because the regulations are too difficult for you, he says, then at least you try to work for me. You at least try to work for me. You work for me in such a manner that you can think about me. That means, if you cannot directly follow the regulative principles, chant the holy name of God, if you cannot perform the 9 processes of devotional service I will explain to you later, then at least you work for God. You help other people to remember God even if you cannot follow the principles. You can help them in so many ways, in your profession, in your work. In all ways you can help other people to remember God even if you cannot follow the principles strictly. This is known as working for God. He says, if you cannot work for God because you're not even attracted to working for God, what to speak of following regulative principles, then he says, you work hard but give up the fruits of your labor. That means you work as you are obligated, but the fruits of your labor, you give it to charity. Give it to a good, benevolent organization which uses that money for some good, for benefit to other people. So you work hard, but that fruit you give to somebody else. That is third best. First best is, of course, best of all is acquiring bhakti, fixing your mind on God at all times. If you can't do that, second best, Krishna says, is to have bhakti yoga, because that helps you to develop bhakti. If he says you can't do that, you work for God directly. If you can't work directly for God, he says, doesn't matter, you work as however you want, but that fruit, you give it away for a good cause. If you can't do that, what does Krishna say? If you can't even give up the fruits of your labor, then he says, in such a case, then you may pursue knowledge. If you can't even do that, if you are not even capable of doing that, then he says you pursue knowledge. But better than the pursuit of knowledge is meditation. Better than meditation is giving up the fruits of your labor. Better than giving up the fruits of your labor is working for me. Better than working for me is following the principles of Bhakti Yoga. Because it is by following the principles of Bhakti Yoga that you can fix your mind on me. So actually, if you see that ladder which is described in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Jnana, the pursuit of knowledge, comes very low down on the list, bottom of the line. But unfortunately, as I said, Ajnani is one who considers himself to be very learned. These people are very intellectual. They always talk about how intelligent they are and how dumb other people are. That I am very intelligent, you see. I am following Jnana Yoga. You people, simple, emotional, sentimental, weak-minded people, you can follow bhakti. Or if you are neither intellectual nor you're emotional, you work like a donkey, doesn't matter, you will achieve God. This is the opinion that they have. So these are called jnanis. It's very difficult for them to attain yoga, or very difficult for them to attain jnana yoga, because they are so puffed up by their own intelligence. They are so puffed up by their own intellect. They feel that by reading the scriptures, by acquiring knowledge, they are actually superior to other people. So it is very difficult to cross beyond that stage. For that you require the mercy of a spiritual master. So the jnani actually is puffed up by his own intelligence. Therefore he finds it very difficult to approach God. Because what is the qualification for obtaining God? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the qualification for obtaining God begins with amanitvam adambitvam. That first of all you have to lose all pride, you have to lose all arrogance. You have to develop humility. Because when you lose pride, when you lose arrogance, when you develop humility, then you can approach God. If you think that you are a big jnani, if you think that you are very spiritually elevated, if you think you are above everybody else, that means you are at the bottom of the dunghill. You are absolutely at the pits, you are in the bottom. If you think you are on the top, that means you are at the bottom. If you think you are the most elevated devotee, if you think you are more elevated than other people, that means actually you are the most degraded of all. Because spiritual life means acquiring humility. So amanitvam adambitvam, you should understand that first of all you should have no pride, you should have no arrogance. So when you have that humility, then only you can approach God. Therefore the path of jnana is very difficult. But if you take to the path of jnana, eventually after many lifetimes you will eventually come to the same conclusion. What is that? You will come to the conclusion that Krishna is the source of everything. Because what does the jnani think? The jnani thinks that God is impersonal. Jnani looks upon God as an impersonal Brahman. And although he looks upon God as an impersonal Brahman, he imagines in a short time that he has become God. These are actually pitfalls in the path of religion. So you should understand that you are not God, you cannot become God, you are simply an infinitesimal part of God. And actually your intelligence, your intellect, your great position is a handicap for acquiring God. In fact, in the Srimad Bhagavatam it has been said that Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribir Edhamana Madapuman Naiv Arati Abhidhatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. What do you have? Do you have aristocratic birth, Janma? Are you born in an aristocratic family? Aishwarya, do you have wealth? Shruta, are you considered very learned and intellectual? Shribir, are you very attractive to the opposite sex? Are you beautiful or handsome? If you have any one of these qualities or a combination of these qualities, then you are disqualified from attaining God. You are disqualified from attaining God. These are all handicaps on the path of God realization, because God is a property of those who are materially exhausted. So when one is materially exhausted, only then you can approach God. So imagining yourself to be learned, imagining yourself to be very intelligent, imagining yourself to be intellectual are all handicaps on the path to attaining God. So one should acquire the virtue of humility, because when you acquire the virtue of humility, then you can progress on the path. And in fact, if you become humble while following the path of knowledge, eventually you will come to the conclusion that Krishna is the source of everything. Because in the beginning, it will be very rough going for you on the path of knowledge. It has been said that klesho diktaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham dehavat bhiravapyate. For one who is attached to the worship of God in the impersonal manifestation, such a person will have great difficulty. It will be very painful for him to progress in that form of worship, because he himself is embodied. But eventually it has been said that bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That eventually after many lifetimes, after many lifetimes of pursuing knowledge, you will eventually come to that conclusion that actually Krishna, Vasudev, is the source of all that exists. So once again we come to the same conclusion, that you start out on a path of yoga which leads to what conclusion? That Krishna is God and the goal of life is to attain love of Him. Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, what is knowledge? He says, sarvasya chaham hridi sanvishto matasmritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. He says, I am seated in everybody's heart, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance and forgetfulness. Because I am in fact the writer of the Vedas, I am the compiler of the Vedas, I am the goal of the Vedas. And the goal of all Vedic scriptures is to eventually realize me. And he also says that yo mam evam asamudo janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. That one who understands me, Krishna, to be the supreme personality of Godhead, he is understood to know everything. Sa sarvavid, he is supposed to be knower of everything because he knows who is God. If you know everything and don't know who is God, you don't know anything. But if you know who is God, then you know everything, because God contains everything within Him. So, in actual fact, a jnani has very rough going, because first of all he is handicapped by the fact that he thinks himself to be very intelligent. Some of you might be wondering, why is he being so harsh on jnanis? Why is he going so tough on all the jnanis? Because a jnani has got rough going. How do I know? Because I was on that path. I can tell you with conviction that it's a rough going. I can tell you with conviction that it's a path with many pitfalls. I can tell you with conviction that it's a path where you get very puffed up and very proud. Why? Because I was on that path. And because I was on that path, and because I have seen the disadvantages of that path, of getting puffed up, of being proud of your intelligence or intellectualism, of having great difficulty in worshipping the impersonal absolute, I have gone through all this, therefore I can tell you, therefore I am speaking so strongly against jnanis. In fact, it has been said that only by the mercy of a spiritual master can your eyes be opened. Therefore, although I was struggling on a path, my eyes were opened by my spiritual master. It has been said, Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yene Tasmai Shri Guruven Nama. That I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So although I was on that path, by the mercy of my spiritual master, my eyes were opened and I realized what is the path of devotion. The simpler path, the better path, the smoother path, the path recommended by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore I am speaking strongly about this, because I don't want any of you to be misled. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have made. Because an intelligent man, he learns by hearing. A less intelligent man, he learns by seeing. The least intelligent man, he learns by experiencing. So since I am the least intelligent and I have learned by experiencing, I want you to be most intelligent and learn by hearing. So the purpose of all knowledge is to understand that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when you understand that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are understood to know everything. Because the Jnani, after many, many lifetimes, eventually comes to that conclusion that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that Vasudeva, that is son of Vasudeva, Krishna, he is the source of everything, and by developing love of him, you can actually attain the goal of life. Because actually, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Naham Veder na tapasa, na jnanena na cha ijjaya. He says, you cannot attain me by studying the scriptures. Naham Veder. Don't think that by reading scriptures you can attain God. Naham Veder. No tapasa, not by performing austerities you can understand God. No danena, not by giving charity you can understand God. No cha ijjaya, not by performing rituals you can remember God or attain God. He says, bhaktyatva ananya shakya. It's only by developing love that you can understand me. This is the statement in the Bhagavad Gita. So knowledge must also in turn lead to the knowledge of who is God, and when you learn who is God, then you will develop love for him. So eventually knowledge also leads to bhakti. Can we have the next slide? Now we come to the path of Ashtanga Yoga. Now the path of Ashtanga Yoga is known as the eightfold path of Dhyana Yoga. Now we have some people who talk about Hatha Yoga, and we have people who talk about Raja Yoga. Well, suffice to know that Raj Yoga as well as Hatha Yoga are included in this path of Ashtanga Yoga. This path has been well described by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras. And actually he has described an eightfold path by which you can gradually come to Samadhi. Can we have the next slide? And this process of yoga has been described in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So you have the eightfold path, and in this eightfold path, it's a stage-wise, step-wise progression. That you have restraints and you have observances. These are known as yama and niyama. So in yama and niyama, what do you have? First of all, you have to practice 100%, to also have other qualities like ashteya. You should not be in the least bit having even the slightest inclination towards stealing, or even the slightest inclination towards covetousness, or the slightest inclination towards hoarding things. You should also have you should be convinced, and you should be a person who is 100% truthful. You should have satya. You should be shaucham. You should also be 100% pure, not only externally but also internally. You should be santosha. You should be completely content no matter what is performed on you in life. You should be able to endure everything in life. And if you have followed all these strict restraints, if you have followed all these strict observances, then finally you can come to the third level, which is called asana. Asana is not gymnastics. Asana is actually performing exercises which have been designed by God for preparing your body for meditation. That means your body by itself cannot sit down and meditate. Therefore, you have to learn to actually condition your body so that it becomes fit for meditation. Of course, nowadays yoga has become very popular, and people are performing yogic exercises for what purpose? To improve their sex life, to become sexual gymnasts. But that is not the purpose of yoga. In fact, before you perform asana, you have to be celibate for a good period of time. So, of course, people today are defeating the actual purpose of asana. It's one who has been celibate for a long period of time who can perform asana properly, and who is qualified to perform asana. So, asana is performing yogic exercises for the sake of conditioning and developing the body to make it fit to meditate. And now, after following all these practices of yama and niyama, when you come to asana, you have to perform all these exercises. And how many exercises are there which you have to perfect? There are 84 lakh exercises that you have to perfect. 84 lakh asanas which you have to master and perfect. And after you have mastered 84 lakh asanas and perfected them, then you can progress to the 4th stage, if you have lived long enough, or if you carried it on from the previous lifetime to this lifetime. So then you have to do pranayam. In pranayam you cannot perform unless you have mastered asana, because then actually pranayam is supposed to be a dangerous thing. Because if you try to perform pranayam without having performed asana, and if you perform it improperly, you can actually damage yourself. Just like you can damage yourself performing asana if you not performed yama and niyama properly. And in pranayam you learn to control your ingrowing breath and your outgoing breath.